DC Studios. This is going to be the bulk of our news section. Because true to James Gunn's word, he came out on the 31st of January and revealed the beginning of his new slate of DC projects, beginning with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. But before we get to that, there's some things that was mentioned about some of the stuff that's already going on. And I want to get out of the way first.
I know real quick that Gods and Monsters belongs to DC to an extent, but I think it's really funny that they took the log line from the Dark Universe and made it the title of Chapter 1.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. What was the Dark Universe? Pennyworth, the origins of Batman's butler. Canceled. So, you know. Gotham Knights.
Oh, no.
Right. Oh, no. The show we weren't watching. Gotham Knights. No comment on Gotham Knights. I just want to put that in there because that was specifically a news article of just he had no comment on Gotham Knights.
I bet you there's some weird they get their one season and it's like we can't say it's canceled yet, but that show gets one season. Yeah. That's what I'm feeling.
He did talk about Superman and Lois only briefly to mention that it's probably only got 1 or 2 more seasons left. So that's kind of cool that they're willing to give it probably 5 seasons at most.
I'll take it.
Not bad.
Supergirl's run.
Yeah. That's Supergirl that got 8.
Supergirl?
Yeah. Did it get 8
seasons?
Why do I think it got 8 seasons? Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's not on the air anymore. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Aquaman Lost Kingdom, and Blue Beetle all were name dropped in his video where he talked about how they kind of lead into this first chapter, specifically The Flash, which has been specifically designed to reboot the universe, and they're just going to use that to continue doing what it was meant to do. Just instead of whatever Hamada was planning to do, it's now what James Gunn is planning to do.
Right.
Reshoots.
Although he said in an interview that they didn't do anything in the edit to change it. They just left it. But we know there's been a lot of reshoots on that movie even recently. So
yeah,
but maybe those weren't his decisions.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Because that stuff was happening. We knew that stuff was happening before we heard about them coming in.
Yeah. Just some real quick notes on these films. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, they only really said that the door is open for Zachary Levi to return, as well as Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller, should Ezra Miller finish their recovery. And there apparently is if they want to continue forward, they're willing to talk about it, but they didn't make any sort of commitment of whether or not he will continue to be the Flash. They will continue to be the Flash, sorry.
And Blue Beetle.
Yes, they did mention Blue Beetle. Real quickly, so the door is open. The Flash is the greatest superhero movie that James Gunn has ever seen. Just a fun quote.
I know I heard that quote. I rewinded to make sure I heard it right. I don't know, James.
Listen, here's the thing, y'all. This is not the first time we've heard it's a good movie. I am not shocked if we get a great superhero movie. It's just unfortunate that Ezra Miller is the star of it.
Right.
That's the rub. That's the rub. That's a bummer because I really want to see a really good Flash movie.
Me too.
Me too.
And you know what? If this is a really good Flash movie, I'll be happy about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom had a couple of notes real quickly. Peter Safran specifically said that Aquaman 3 is happening. Apparently, Jason Momoa has always envisioned it as a trilogy. And that James Gunn mentioned on a separate interview with DC that Jason Momoa is not playing Lobo. He will not play 2 characters. He will only play Aquaman.
Okay.
So,
I personally, I was ready for the chaos of we see Aquaman and then a year later he's fighting Superman as Lobo, and that's just the world we live in. I'm like, it's a shame. I was kind of hoping for it.
That's a Hamada kind of decision.
Hey, that's
James
still
Gunn, Peter Safran
That's still
decision.
a fun decision. I would have loved to see.
Sure.
Okay. Now we'll talk about Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters.
I think just real quick on the note, they did. I don't know if you had more about it, but just on the Ezra Miller note that they're going to have more conversations with Ezra Miller through their recovery. It's not while the door is open, that door can also be shut.
Yes.
If some things there's still more not so great stuff coming out about Ezra Miller, so I can see them closing this door after the Flash movie passes.
Yeah, and James Gunn was asked about Zachary Levi's recent tweets, and he talked about if I stopped working with everyone who I disagreed with. I would have very little to work with. So Zachary Levi has an open door there as well. He mentioned on a question that that the Flash won't reset everything. We were kind of thinking that that there's a possibility of a clean slate happening over at DC, but that is not the case. They are going to piecemeal what has happened before, such as Aquaman and Viola Davis specifically.
They're doing a new 52.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we have no clarification still on the Black Canary film and Misha Green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Hopefully all good, but we don't know.
Yeah. Because I don't think that movie's shooting. I feel like we would know if it's shooting.
No, it's not shooting. And he did name check Birds of Prey and Shazam in the same sentence, which I was kind of disappointed with, because he talked about how like no one was minding the mint on DC. They were just giving projects to whoever, and it was really hurting the brand. So that's why we got things like Black Adam and Birds of Prey. And I was like, Birds of Prey is a better movie than Black Adam.
It's very, very true.
So Superman Legacy was a movie that we already knew was happening. We didn't know the title. Now we do. It's Superman Legacy. This is the James Gunn Superman film that he did a clarification that Henry Cavill was never fired. He was just never cast.
Right.
Which I think Sparks mentioned was the most likely possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he got dicked over by the people before James Gunn.
Yeah.
Which he said in the interview, like, yeah, he got screwed over by not me. It wasn't me who did this to him.
Right.
Sorry, we're still friends.
So we're not going in release order. We're doing this whatever.
No, I forgot to put it in a release order after I was done with it.
It's fine. I just wanted to clarify.
Because I'm totally fine not doing a release order. Watching it in release order, I know, let's say there's 1 million people, 999,000 people went, what? With the first announcement. 100%.
Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my second one. I think I wanted to start with Superman Legacy because we knew that was happening.
Sure.
Yeah.
So very quickly on Superman Legacy, it's got a release date, July 11th, 2025. It's not going to be an origin story, and it's going to focus on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Sounds cool.
Why do you? It's so weird that they gave a release date for this one specifically.
Because it's the one closest to being done. Because his script, it's probably the one with the closest script to being done.
I guess so, but
yeah,
like even as like I would have just not said it yet if you're not saying some of the others that are coming before it.
But I don't think there is anything coming before it.
There is. It's Creature Commandos and Waller and
is that coming before?
Yes,
it's Creature Commandos and Waller.
Like project.
Creature Commandos and Waller are the only two coming before it, if I recall correctly. But I did notice that it looks like we're not going to get a 2024 DC film. Mm-hmm. So there will be a year off where it makes sense. There's 4 coming out this year. And James Gunn mentioned in an interview that he wants to do 2 movies and 2 shows a year, and that's kind of the output that they're aiming for. So it would make sense to kind of skip 2024 and get that output out there starting 2025.
Yeah, and I think that is a beautiful amount of stuff. 2 movies, 2 TV shows, you stage a movie show, beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, he's definitely learning some lessons from what Marvel did this past couple of years.
Oh yeah.
So Creature Commandos was the first thing that he announced, which is going to be a 7-episode animated series. All episodes have been written by James Gunn. It's going to see Amanda Waller create a Black Ops team out of the monstrous prisoners. The lineup includes Rick Flag Sr., Nina Mazursky, Dr. Phosphorus, Frankenstein, Eric Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, who is apparently the lead of the show, G.I. Robot, and Weasel.
We know Weasel.
The only actor in the show who is currently cast is Sean Gunn, who played Weasel in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. So I watched this like 6-minute presentation at work, and like I didn't hear anything about it. So like when this showed up, and I saw the image of the J.M. DeMatteis 88 Frankenstein ripping a dude's head off, who's a Nazi. I'm like, this is what we're starting with. This is going to alienate so many people. I'm so excited.
It already has.
I cannot tell you what this made me feel. Just pure excitement. I'm like, the first thing you're doing with your new universe is starting with what Marvel is starting to do in their universe.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to do their monster shit. And I'm like, James is like, man, I really wish I could have done Midnight Sun shit. I'll just do it over here. Because let me tell you, nobody gives a shit about the Creature Commandos. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean in a popularity. Like, they don't show up anymore. They are now the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Half of these characters are not from the Creature Commandos. They're from Jeff Lemire's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. run from the New 52. That's who the Fish Lady and the Bride of Frankenstein and all them. This is so exciting, and the fact that it's animated and those characters will show up in live action in some form is lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So that was the other thing, is that this is an animated show. This is the only animated show that was announced during this presentation. There will be more. And the goal is for the actors who play these animated versions to play them in live action, because they will show up in live action. Oh, I said Sean Gunn was the only one cast. Viola Davis is in this because she's still Amanda Waller.
She's Waller. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I like that. I feel like that, again, like learning a lesson, maybe not necessarily learning a lesson from Marvel, but like doing what Marvel probably hoped they could have done with What If.
Having Rick Flag Sr. be on the team is extremely funny. I really hope they get Joel Kinnaman.
That'd be funny.
Yeah. The thing, I'm pretty sure they said it's also going to be a modern day interpretation.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine, because all those characters are like immortal and they show up in the present day. But I really hope like the first episode is a World War II episode, or we get flashbacks when they were Nazi hunters. Because those first couple issues of that comic is awesome. Just Dracula's flying around, just eating fools. It's so fun. It is so fun. And like with James Gunn like writing it, like imagine Suicide Squad but with the Universal monsters. And I'm like, that is absolutely something I will watch.
Right.
Couldn't be more thrilled with this first one. I mean, Superman 2. Yeah.
James Gunn, because James Gunn is working, he said in the presentation he's halfway through the script of the Superman Legacy, because he wrote all these episodes. The Peacemaker season 2 has been delayed. It is still happening. There's a placeholder, not necessarily a placeholder, but like there's a show they decided to do in between to kind of help us along, which I'll talk about in a minute. Lanterns.
Ben's really excited about Creature Commandos, right, Ben?
I had no idea who the hell the Creature Commandos are. I just saw the Frankenstein monster. I'm like, hey, I'm playing you on Dungeons and Dragons right now, and that was it.
Oh, that's artwork from the show, by the way.
Importantly, Ben, you didn't see it and go, well, this is a wash, which is what a bunch of people did.
I saw, man, real quickly though, just like my impressions of the presentation, like I watched it, so I was like, oh shit, I'm in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was stoked that it was something so off the beaten path. Most of this presentation, honestly, like not what you'd expect, and we'll get into like the whys of that at the end. But I'm so
Gods and monsters.
I know that Twitter and a lot of the virtual internet space is not the majority of people, but it's super disheartening to see people so quickly be like, I'm unwilling to try anything new, and I'm like, okay, well, this is why the MCU can't have nice things.
Yeah. I mean, but like, but James Gunn, like he has such a track record where like if you do like the marketing nonsense of from the minds who brought you Guardians and Peacemaker and Suicide Squad and he wrote the Scooby-Doo movies. Don't forget those too.
Peacemaker was a huge hit. Like the storytelling is good. People are going to show up. I'm like, how do you all have to be this close-minded right off the bat? Like, trust that the story might be good.
Not everyone loves a Dracula like we do.
For sure.
They can't appreciate a good bloodsucker.
Also, you don't have to watch every single project in the DC universe.
They're casting a wide net. They're trying to get everybody. A little bit of everything.
Everything is apparently by the time we get to Swamp Thing, we'll know what the overarching plot of Chapter 1 is.
Sure.
Because there is one. He mentioned it like a while ago, not like a while ago, but like a couple weeks ago, that he basically did what he mapped out Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, and 3, and he stuck to that three movie arc. He just did that again, but on a larger scale.
Yeah.
For the DC universe. So,
but I don't think that like you are going to have a hard time watching Superman Legacy if you don't watch Creature Commandos.
Sure.
And that's another great thing about the presentation. He was like, like the comics, like they don't all look the same. They don't all feel the same. That doesn't mean they don't exist in the same world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like Marvel at its worst is all of these things feel the same and they look the same, but they're not supposed to. That like Marvel's, I think they've gotten away from that. That was what like
they're working on it.
They're working on it, but that was a big criticism. But like, there's no reason your gritty Batman movie and your super fun Superman movie can't exist in the same world just because they don't look the same. That's just like Just you have to have a bigger imagination. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about like how Rocket Raccoon, how when Guardians of the Galaxy first came out, there were news articles being like, how is Rocket Raccoon going to tie into to Thor, and like and he liked that. It was like that's the beauty of comic books. Like that's what he wants to emulate with this new slate, with this new franchise, is the emulation of all these different tones and all these different styles, all these different mediums. And how they cross over is the fun part, because there will be crossover. There's apparently sporadic crossovers all throughout these projects, not just one major crossover at the end. So seeing how like Superman will interact with the Creature Commandos is something that could be really fun.
Yeah. You have Thor call Rocket Rabbit, and then you make $1 billion. Like
then you make $1 billion.
I firmly, James Gunn knows his comic book shit. I firmly believe that the Creature Commando stuff, like you're going to be. This is the chapter 1 is Gods and Monsters, but it is like foundation for a lot of what the DC universe is going to be. They're doing a lot of magic stuff. They're doing like Swamp Thing stuff. They're doing creature stuff. They're doing the traditional Batman, Superman. They're showing you everything this universe will be, and then they'll expand on it. Half of those guys from the Creature Commandos are on the Agents of Shade, and they deal with Swamp Thing, and they deal with Animal Man, and they deal with the Rot World stuff. And that is, you bet your ass, Swamp Thing will be doing some of that stuff leading into something like that. You can't introduce the Agents of Shade. Their whole thing was being in Rot World. That was why they were there. That was the introduction. So that's an exciting thing. I love it. We're gonna have a Dracula, animated Dracula. Love it.
Lanterns. This is going to be a series focused on Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan, which is supposedly in the vein of True Detective. It's going to be a terrestrial cop show where they're dealing with, what do you say? Beat Earth, Beat 2814 or something like that. So it's going to be based around them. It sounds like they've adopted and reworked that Greg Berlanti Green Lantern show. It's not the same one, but it sounds like that maybe was what we were hearing about when that show wasn't going forward.
Sure. I'll be honest, this is the one I'm excited for because it's a new Green Lantern thing. Like that, it's probably actually going to happen now, James Gunn. But this is the pitch that I like the least, because when I hear Green Lantern and you tell me we're going to be on Earth and it's going to be, have you guys watched True Detective by any chance?
No, I have not.
Okay. True Detective is horrifying, and it's gritty, and it's harrowing, and it's like really, really mature, like HBO hardcore, like sacrificing children, grim. This is not what I want my Green Lantern to be. I don't want them on Earth doing sad detective work. That's the opposite of what my Green Lantern show to be, especially the first one. If that's like a plot you have to do later on, sure, but starting your show like that, like, again, anything could be good, but like that is not what I want. Not at all. We'll see who like the creative team will be, but like grim Earth-based Green Lantern is the opposite of what I want.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, honestly. Like, this is the one where I was this is the only one where I was like, I don't know about this one. I love the idea of pairing Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. I think that rules. But the term terrestrial kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I would really love a Green Lantern show that was out in space doing space stuff. You know, they have an entire sector of space that they work on, not just Earth, and I think that could have been a lot of fun. Now, that's not to say there are apparently other Green Lanterns that are going to be in the show, peppered throughout. We'll probably see Chip or Gnort or even Ayla Secura. So like, not Ayla Secura, that's a Star Wars character.
I was gonna say.
It's like one of those sounds like a Star Wars character.
Oh, the girl who wears the white tank top and the skirt, the orange one with the pointy ears. I forgot.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Oh crap!
It starts with an A though.
It does.
Anyway, but so like we'll probably see some Green Lanterns peppered throughout. But like I want to see Mogo. I'm not going to see Mogo in this show.
At least not season 1. It feels like real quick. It feels like for their first season, because if this is going to be a TV show that has multiple seasons, the first season's got to be a lower budget to get the audience in. What it feels like. You start small. You can do enough special effects stuff with the rings on Earth before you go big. And I'm sure there'll be one episode where it is big space stuff, but obviously if it's a terrestrial show, it's not the whole show. So that's my hope, that like we have to start small before we go big. But like, I kind of wish we started.
I think that's absolutely what it is. I think that you have to I think they're trying to find a way to ground an audience into liking Green Lantern, a general audience, a general film television audience into liking Green Lantern without doing an origin story. And I think this is fine. I think that the intention with this is to not even necessarily have bigger seasons, but a bigger film past related to Green Lantern stuff, doing stuff in space past what this show does. I think this is supposed to be like an ease you into Green Lantern, and maybe we don't need that, but I think it's a smart move for a general audience.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's Aricia.
Aricia, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, can we pull up MJ's comment?
Yes.
There.
Ben, if you want to do it, please.
Already done.
So since we're telling Elseworld stories, can we have that 2 Snyder Justice League movies animated, if not live action? Yeah. I mean, yes, absolutely. I think they could. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will, but like, I would love to see that. Sure. Yeah.
I think it would be fine. I think doing it animated would help to reduce the budget, but I think you're still talking about, if you want all those actors back doing the voices, it's going to be a lot of money. I don't know that for some of them, it's kind of a bitter point. I don't know that they want to come back. I don't even know if Snyder himself wants to come back at this point.
He's making a Star Wars movie right now.
I think in some ways, while the fans might want it, I don't know. This is speculation completely, but like to Snyder, I think this would be like a lesser version of what he intended, and like a consolation prize that I don't think he feels like he needs.
Yeah.
I understand fans feel that way, but I don't think from how he's talked about it, he does. I don't think he'd want to come back and do anything less than the version he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And while animation would allow you to do a lot more, it's also, and not to say like, one of my favorite things Snyder's done is an animation, which is how he edited the Owl movie. It looks, how he directed it, it looks great. You could do a lot more in animation, but it's not his intention. So
yeah,
I think this is just not going to happen.
His time has passed.
I mean, he's having a great time over at Netflix. I mean, he got to do a Star Wars movie. He's got there's an anime for his Army of the Dead show coming. He's got his Star Wars, his Rebel Moon is doing a bunch of spinoffs and things.
He's got free reign over there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so Lanterns TV series, I'm happy to see Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan back. And at any rate, like it is.
I'm happy to see Jon Stewart in live action.
That's
all that really matters to me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Paradise Lost, a new series set on Themyscira, but in the past, so prior to the Wonder Woman films. It is set years in the past, before Diana was even born. It's going to be a TV drama which focuses on the genesis and political intrigue of an island of all women, which is apparently in the vein of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Is it prior to the Wonder Woman films, or is it in the history of this new version of Themyscira that happens after Flashpoint? Because those are two different things.
The answer is yes.
Well, Gal Gadot has an open door to return.
That doesn't mean that her movies are still canon.
Yeah,
that's true.
Elseworld. There's not enough information. This is the one that has like the least to go off of, because it's.
I think we're gonna see a lot of like the recent Amazon stuff.
I hope so.
Come in.
Yeah, it's. Game of Thrones is very cool, and like having a DC version of that, like with nothing but Amazons, is a really cool idea. I need to know why they chose to do this for a reason. How this ties to the bigger DC universe is what I'm curious about, because their whole thing is like they're on their own for a long time.
Right.
So like, why do we need the insight from 1,000 years ago? What does that do for the future? And obviously, there's a story there. I just don't know what it is yet. So
it feels like so you can get those other Amazons, like the newer, more progressive representational ones that we've seen it be brought in through the comics, like a way to build a bridge to that trajectory where Wonder Woman's not the only person we're going to follow from that island.
Soft relaunch of Wonder Woman.
That being said, I do find it, you because you said it verbatim, I do find it really weird that James Gunn used so many HBO shows as the representational references for what they're doing. Like, it didn't feel like something I would expect him to do, that they all had to be HBO shows, like True Detective, Game of Thrones.
I mean, it's staying on brand.
As the reference points, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Real quickly, I meant to say about Lanterns. Apparently, the mystery that they're solving feeds into the overarching storyline of Chapter 1. So that's interesting. Yeah. All right. So Paradise Lost, a Booster Gold live action series is in development.
Bless.
Thank goodness. We've been hearing about a Booster Gold movie, Blue and Gold show for God knows how long. And finally, we may be getting one in the form of a series, which apparently the overarching theme of that show will be dealing with superhero imposter syndrome, which is kind of fun to think about.
Yes.
I mean, he's perfect. God, it's this will make me, in the encroaching time that this comes out, I'll be like, wait, there's a Booster Gold I haven't seen, and it's Donald Faison. So this will get me to watch that. But for those of you in the audience who don't know, Booster Gold is a man from the future who goes back in time to try to become famous. So he's famous in the future, and he's bumbling, but he's got a heart of gold. He's got Skeets, his little robot. He's so fun. He's so
we're gonna
fun.
see Skeets in live action.
Yeah. It was a new 52 Jeff Johns run. I read like one and a half issues of it earlier in the week. It's great. Like, Booster is such a fun character, and like him wanting to join the Justice League, and then like they accept him, and then he blows him off, and I'm just like, I don't need you guys because I'm actually too famous already. Like, it's really great. Like, I'm so excited that Booster is like in phase 1. Like he's a core thing that they're starting with. It's just really, really fun. And again, like, they're showing the future of what the DC universe will look like. So like they're building blocks for the entire universe from beginning and ends and stuff. It's cool.
I mean, you've already got your Blue Beetle.
Yep, right there. I'm so
Right
excited.
Love it.
Yeah, this floored me. I'm so stoked for a Booster Gold series. I've wanted this for so long.
Yeah.
Speaking of things I've wanted for so long, The Brave and the Bold. It is not titled Batman. It is just titled The Brave and the Bold as of now, which will introduce the new Batman of this universe. So whoever's playing Batman for this new franchise will be introduced in The Brave and the Bold, as well as introducing Robin in the form of Damian Wayne, my favorite Robin.
Yes, I'm staring at my Batman omnibus right over there. It's too heavy and Swamp Thing's in front of him, so I won't get it. Morrison's Batman is the seminal modern run. He wrote it. They wrote it for so many years. It transitioned into Batman and Robin, which is my favorite Batman book. Back when Dick Grayson is Batman, but calling it Brave and the Bold, without telling us anything, says a lot about like the vibe they're gonna go for. And the fact that we're starting with a Bat family is like, I've enjoyed a lot of the Batman movies that have come out. There's not been a single Batman movie that I felt this is the truest Batman. Even the Batman from last year, I love. It's not the comic book Batman. Having a Robin, having Dick and Tim and all those people, like, having it established, having him be a dad is so exciting. Mm-hmm. Just throwing you into a Bat family, because like even like the regular world, they play the Arkham games, they know all these characters. Like in the general audience, like they know Dick Grayson. So like, starting this way, it's also really interesting that you're going to start with a young Superman and an older Batman, but that's not a super big deal because Superman doesn't really age, so he can age and it'll be fine. It's so exciting. And again, starting with Damian is really bold. Starting with his assassin son, that means you have to do Talia stuff immediately. You have to do Ra's al Ghul. You have to set that stuff up. It's awesome. It feels like a comic book come to life just hearing it.
So two things real quickly. It, as Ryan said, it is based on Grant Morrison's seminal run. My favorite Batman run. Ben, if you want to pull up Grayson's comment, that feeds into what Peter Safran said. So he says, I'm hoping there is still a Dick Grayson, even if they make reference to him. I am excited to see a Batman and Robin duo. Yes. So Peter Safran clarified this because this was not made present. This was not made clear on the presentation. This is going to feature other members of the extended Bat family, just because we feel like they've been left out of the Batman stories in the cinemas for far too long.
Good. And the thing, them starting with Damian, that does not mean they're erasing the other Robins. No. That's just, to me, that just confirms that they existed, and we will see them in the future.
Yeah, guys, I mean, Dick Grayson could possibly show up as a character or a reference. Same with Jason Todd. Same with Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. The fact that we were finally getting the Bat family, because we haven't had any Bat family movies. I don't even really want to call it a Bat family movie since Batman and Robin, but the Schumacher film. But ever since, we've got nothing. It's just been Batman, early Batman, year whatever Batman, or Batman without a Robin in case of the Ben Affleck film, the Ben Affleck BBS
It's just the
film.
animated stuff that we've
Just the animated stuff. It's like I feel like it's been a long time, and the Bat family has been very well established in the animated films, the comic books for God knows how many years, probably decades at this point.
It wasn't that in the 80s.
But wasn't that long after Batman's introduction that Robin was introduced?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it really, the time period between the two wasn't that long.
I don't know if Warner Brothers is just so afraid of putting a Robin in because they're so scared of another Batman and Robin scenario. I mean, Batman Forever is pretty decent. It's an okay movie.
Just think about it for a second. There's a crazy man dressed as a bat, and he has a 12-year-old companion wearing short shorts, killing or beating up criminals at midnight. It's not as easy to transfer having a child beat up people on the street. It's not as easy to do, and it's not as people aren't willing. You got to be really on top of that to make it seem okay. You got to tell the right story. It's got to be a comic book vibe. It can't be the Batman with a 12-year-old beating criminals up. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be that vibe.
You got to have your Robin be, like a late 20s, early 30s cop. A Joseph Gordon-Levitt type, if you will.
Oh God,
John Robin,
and that's the Robin they'll accept.
So the I think also, Ben, there's I've noticed this a lot. I'm sure I've talked about it on the show that Warner Brothers scars run deep from their cinematic failures. The Schumacher films were not well received, and since then I think. Look, the guard has changed at Warner Brothers for so long, so maybe I'm completely off base. But like, there was also a reason why Catwoman was the last female superhero film we got until Wonder Woman. Like, because like they see this failure and they're like, okay, well, never again. Nobody wants to see this ever. But it's been 40 years since then. Not really. It hasn't been that long. I'm not that old. But like close to, and like the idea of like we're finally going to get these, and the fact that what Peter Safran said, and the fact that Gunn is such a big fan of Morrison's Batman run, like everyone's on the table. We could get Steph and Cass. We're definitely getting Dick Grayson and Tim Drake. 100%. I don't think there's a world this movie is made without them, honestly. But like the fact that we could get Jason Todd and again we could get a Stephanie Brown is so exciting.
We can get animated Bat Family projects and live action Bat Family projects that all connect to the same Batman, because they can make live action shows and animated shows that are also tying into the films, and they can have their own movies.
The fun thing about having the universe where it is, all that stuff happened. So like if you have Batgirl, have her be Oracle. If you have Dick Grayson, have him be Nightwing, and then you see, we'll do a flashback when he was Robin. Like all this stuff can be established, and then the next movie you'll get a Nightwing movie or Nightwing TV show. You get the Batgirls TV show. Like starting with a Bat Family movie is like a foundation to spread the rest of the Bat Family out. Yeah. It's so smart. It's so smart, and I'm just God. I cannot wait to see who the villain is. Whoever they pick. If it's just like the Demon, if it's just Ra's al Ghul again, like him and Talia. Done really well. I'll be here for it.
You can do a very different version of them from Nolan and have some
not white. Yes,
that's not that I meant.
No, I know. I just have them be actually Middle Eastern and have Damien be Middle Eastern, like the comics are finally starting to do. That would be really great.
Also, trying to think of a good villain that we haven't, like a really good Batman villain who hasn't had time to shine. Into
Black Mask. Film. No, we got a pretty good Black Mask in Birds of Prey.
We got a Black Mask. Harley Quinn beat his ass.
Not according to James Gunn.
True, good point.
Bring back Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. He could be alive now.
That's true.
I think if you do like the League of Assassins, like I know it's like retread, but like doing it like quote unquote like right as opposed to like Dark Knight Rises version, like have it be that, and then having them like hire assassins like in Arkham Origins, hire a couple assassins, have a Lady Shiva, Deathstroke, or whatever, have a fight scene or whatever.
Or just make it Dr. Hugo Strange with Dave Bautista.
He loves little glasses. I love little glasses.
Actually, quite frankly, like the League of Assassins would be a really good movie, especially if you're introducing Damien, because he's Talia's son.
Yeah. And you need like all that history. God, you could do so much and it's so great, the stuff with like Batman, like Ra's wanting him to the stuff they did in Arrow. I want that, but on the big screen. Like I wanted you to be my heir. You sired my grandchild. You are the legacy of the demon. But Batman's like, no, I have honor.
The fact that Grant Morrison's Batman run is going to be adapted into a movie is so cool.
I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. Oh yeah, Condiment King.
Condiment King.
Condiment.
So Grayson saying using Condiment King as a red herring would be hilarious. I wouldn't mind seeing Hush though. Hush has been pretty good.
I'm waiting.
Okay,
I'm waiting for a good Hush. I think Hush.
Side note: one of my favorite jokes in Lego Batman movie is when Zach Galifianakis' Joker mentions Condiment King, and it goes, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, Google it. He's real."
He could be the opening like in media res action scene where like you see Damien kicking the shit out of a condiment man.
The joke I believe is that he lists off a bunch of Z tier Batman villains, and then the pilot's like, "You made some of those up." It's like, "No, Google it."
I love that joke. That's actually a really good movie too. I'd like that movie a lot.
Swamp Thing. It's getting a big budget horror movie.
Bookshelf.
The one time where I am stupid excited for a horror movie, it's the mother effing Swamp Thing. Because I remember
you watched Swamp Thing with us, right? It's been so
I love that show.
I just don't remember. It's been again over 3 years.
I watched Swamp. I remember reading Scott Snyder's Swamp Thing for the New 52. I was hounding Brandon to loan me those books. I freaking loved that book. I was like, and now that we're actually getting a Swamp Thing movie, I am super excited and happy. Swamp Thing he is getting the love he deserves.
Look at this big ass boy. I got this at Comic-Con.
I love how the wings look with your green screen.
That's very cool. Oh, and his little buckle shield from Injustice. Yeah. You guys go first about Swamp Thing.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. James Mangold is in talks to direct this. He is not signed on, but it sounds like he's interested. That'd be pretty cool.
I only don't believe it because it was announced so quick to when this was announced.
Yeah,
that's the only reason. Because like it happened like hours after. I'm like, I don't believe you, but dude makes good movies. Who am I to say no?
Right.
Yeah, dude, Swamp Thing. He is my favorite DC character. Things I love, I get tattooed on me, and Swamp Thing is one of those things.
I'm so pleased that they're moving forward with this so soon without looking at like it's another clear sign of like how this is really in Gunn and Safran's control, because nobody's saying like, well, the Swamp Thing show didn't do what we wanted or blah blah blah.
Yeah,
we just did that and we didn't really like what we did with it, even though it was great. It's we're getting a movie. They have faith.
On Twitter, I'm friends with #1 Swamp Thing stan, and we were having a conversation of like, after that show got canceled, legitimately, I didn't think we would see Swamp Thing for 10 years, like in any cameo.
It's usually the cycle.
That's the cycle, yeah. Like, we used this seedless character, let's move on. James Gunn knows the power of Swamp Thing and how cool and vital he can be, and like when you lean into the mystical elemental stuff about Swamp Thing, he can be in any story. And again, like I firmly believe that like Swamp Thing will not be like pivotal to the DC universe, but him starting phase 1 with Swamp Thing, the rot stuff will happen. There will be a big rot thing, whether it's animated or a big live action crossover. Like I believe it.
Was Swamp Thing being introduced into this in this chapter? Do you think the next chapter we'll see Animal Man?
Here's the thing, Ben. This chapter is not done. This is not everything from this chapter. He was very clear. Like, this is the beginning of this chapter.
These are all the things we'll see in the next couple of years.
I think Animal Man is in this chapter.
I wouldn't be shocked. Animal Man, I wouldn't be surprised if that turns out to be like an animated thing, because Animal Man is grotesque in a way that Swamp Thing you can get away with plants and stuff. It's a little more, Animal Man's pure body horror.
I will say to a point also about this that I think is valuable. Even with the Lanterns comparison or anything like that, a lot of people are saying, who are upset with the regime change, just don't like change. One of the things that those folks have all stood behind is, Snyder brought maturity to the DC Comics characters. They're real for adult superhero movies, not like the Marvel ones. And whether I agree with that stance or not, if that's what they were demanding, this slate shows that maturity is on the table. Like, you are going to have mature, and Peacemaker will still be part of this. Peacemaker's world will still be part of that. That is mature. You're still going to have that and have things that are for the family. Like, that's all going to exist in tandem. That is going to be a standout difference from Marvel stuff, because you are going to have things that are going to be scary. They're going to be disturbing.
Yeah.
As they should be.
And if you do, I don't think you'll start Swamp Thing with like a Rot World thing, because you have to do like a lot of like foundation stuff with the Parliament and all that stuff, and like Alacolin becoming Swamp Thing and all that stuff. But I can definitely see them setting up
this is described as an origin story for him.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's fine. I could totally see like, again, like Ben, you watched the show, so like there was a bunch of characters like Phantom Stranger showed up, and like I can imagine like Etchkin the Demon showing up like in a bigger budget thing. Who was it? The Blue Devil.
Blue Devil.
Blue Devil.
What was that, Brandon? What'd you say?
Etrigan. It's so
Etrigan.
exciting.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a rhymer. I love it. Yes. Again, like starting your first phase instead of like, oh, you know, we're just gonna redo a Wonder Woman and we're gonna redo Aquaman. Just like start with the Justice League again. Like we're starting with the weird shit. And like the characters not everyone knows. Yeah, you got your Batman, Superman, but like Booster Gold is like a fan favorite character. Not everyone knows who Booster Gold is. Starting with a ancient Wonder Woman show where you might not recognize any of the characters is a big risk. But that's just like, that's awesome. Again, like this whole lineup of all these things are just like so exciting.
And we're not done. Waller was announced. This is going to star Viola Davis as Waller.
This is the thing immediately after Creature Commandos.
Yes. This will feature Waller teaming up with members of Team Peacemaker, and is written by Crystal Henry, who was a writer on Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who developed the Doom Patrol TV series for HBO Max.
And we should be specific, the HBO Watchmen show, not the movie Watchmen.
The HBO Watchmen show, yes.
The greatest comic book show ever made.
Pretty good.
Oh my God, this lineup?
Yeah.
Wow. Waller.
I'm really excited about this, both because of that creative team that you just mentioned, but also because like Viola Davis deserves this, I think, at this point, with what she's been given with Waller. I think we deserve a movie that's dedicated to her. Frankly, she's getting the treatment I wish they had given Sam Jackson's Nick Fury at some point in the MCU, is that he should have gotten one project that was actually about him.
Secret Invasion 10 years later.
So, but having this project about her and putting her at the center, but using the Peacemaker Foundation, super smart. And a super good way to bridge from stuff we've had to Peacemaker Season 2, et cetera, et cetera.
And if it's focusing on Waller, you gotta imagine it's gonna be real grim.
I'm even more passionately big on Viola Davis after watching The Woman King. So like I want to see so much more with her.
Real quickly, just want to congratulate Viola Davis on her EGOT. She did it. She EGOTted.
She's got them all. Some people want it all.
So yeah, I love this idea. This is going to slot between Peacemaker season 1 and 2, kind of leading into what they're doing with that. Much in the same way that Penguin series, which they didn't talk about specifically, but the idea for the Penguin series is to lead into the Batman 2 Part 2. Sorry,
that thing's like filming. That thing's real.
I know. We're getting a Penguin show. Cool. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Will be so this one is really interesting because this is the first one where they specifically said it is based on this one book. This is going to be based on Tom King and Bilquis Evely's series, miniseries, 8 issues, I believe.
Yep.
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Yeah.
So it's not confirmed 100%, but Tom King is also now a part of the DC writing staff. He's basically they've created like a Marvel, like what used to be with the MCU, where they had like the Marvel committee of like Bendis and a bunch of other people. But like Tom King is an active, because he was writing New Gods with Ava DuVernay, which is no longer happening. But they're keeping him around, and sure enough, he's probably going to write the script for this movie, which would be insane. Y'all haven't read Supergirl. It is about Kara turning 21 and her going to have like, she wants to go drink alone on a planet, and then she gets caught up in a basically like Seven Samurai like fantasy adventure. It is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read in my entire life. Truly, like Bilquis Evely, who did Sandman Theater, just beautiful stuff. And like she basically turns into the Phoenix in this comic, and like she gets new powers, and like there's a lot of red kryptonite and like red sun stuff, so she's depowered a lot. She just has to like be herself. She's more like Thor. She's more like a drunken Thor. It is a departure for Supergirl, but in the Tom King way, where he kind of changes characters to write a good story. It's incredible. And the fact that this is, again, one of the first things they're putting out is this cosmic Supergirl adventure where she helps this rural village and this little girl, like, unbelievable. This movie is going to be expensive as shit if this is the story they're telling. It's really exciting. This book is incredible. And Tom King, I was so sad when New Gods wasn't happening. But He's back. Love it.
So Supergirl One of Tomorrow, they mentioned will is based on the comic book, obviously, because it was one of James Gunn's favorite comics. He apparently fell in love with it, like most people did who read it, and felt like adapting it, which is really cool because like what we're seeing, and I've got a quote from him about comic books, but what we're seeing is that this is a man who was currently reading comic books. He's read comic books his whole life. He is currently keeping up with them, and he could literally, he is now in the power. He's now has the power that, comic book fans have been dying for. Hey, I just read this book. Ring, ring. Let's make this movie.
I don't know if there's been a quicker turnaround of a comic coming out to being in a movie. This comic came out last year.
Right.
This came out last year, and there's going to be a movie in potentially 3 years. That's how powerful that book is.
Mm-hmm.
And also shows to like how many, like, Supergirl has not had that many incredible stories over the last decade, which is a big bummer.
This would be her first movie since the one in the 80s.
Yeah. Supergirl. Love it.
Cool. The Authority are getting adapted into a
This is the weirdest one. This is the weirdest one out of all of them.
Yeah, I was really surprised about this one. Mostly because, like, honestly, Hamada would never.
No,
but seriously, like,
Boys on TV.
So The Authority is going to be a movie based on the Wildstorm heroes, The Authority, and that's really all we know about it. They did show us the cover of one of the I think the Warren Ellis issue, which could hint to what characters will be in the movie, but we don't know any specifics on it yet.
Well, the Authority has generally had the same team in all of its runs, so it's probably going to be like the same characters, and like the most famous of them are Apollo and Midnighter.
Yeah.
They've transitioned more into the DC universe as opposed to the other characters. Even though they're all in the DC universe, they are the most popular ones. The thing about the Authority is it's what The Boys is making fun of. So the Authority it was a groundbreaking comic when it came out. It was one of the first like rated R superheroes taking charge. Like the whole thing is like superheroes like doing it by any means necessary, saving the world by any means necessary. Apollo and Midnighter are a gay couple, Superman and Batman parallel, but they're insane. Midnighter specifically is true chaos. He loves violence, and he has a supercomputer in his brain, so he has like Sherlock moves where he can tell what you're going to do 3 steps ahead. He's insane, and I'm pretty sure he is the reason this movie got greenlit, because he is the most interesting character of all those characters. James Gunn has an idea for what to do with the Authority. We're getting the Authority before the Justice League is formed, and I think that's on purpose. I think a lot of people are speculating that the Authority is going to take the place of what the Elite are in the DC universe, where they are the rough and tumble, rude Justice League. And they might be around before the Justice League is formed. So Superman or Batman meet them and realize they are bad examples of how to be superheroes. They are good people, but they do bad things, like the Boys. So this might be like the morality check of the DC universe, where this new DC universe is going to be like what we want with Superman being bright and humble, but this will be like, hey, these are the bad guys of this universe who do things by any means necessary. They will be the Squadron Supreme, if you will. They will be the anti-heroes of this universe. That's the best way to put it. They're the anti-heroes. Again, the weirdest choice. They pilot a interdimensional cruise that can travel between dimensions. It's really cool.
So it's interesting that you mentioned the Elite, that they'll take the place of the Elite, because Morrison just did a Superman and the Authority book, which had members of the Elite join the Authority.
That's why people are doing that. Yeah. I didn't finish that book, but that is very much the same thing of like Superman joining with a bunch of people who takes matters in their own hands, and he has to rein them in as an old man Superman. And people just love violence, and he's just like, damn it, guys, could you please not punch people's heads off, please?
Stop liking violence.
Stop. Manchester Black, chill out, bro, please. So like, if that is the case, that's really cool. If not, it's really cool characters. There are some really, really awesome characters in this book. So at least we'll get that. I do think they will be like not the crime syndicate, but like the Justice League you don't want to have around if you can just have the Justice League. So
you mentioned, I think you mentioned the right parallel with the Squadron Supreme.
Yeah. They will kill you if you're a bad guy. Like, they have no qualms about that. And Superman doesn't like that.
I think it's also, I'm not going to say this is Gunn's intent, but I do think it is a way of, here, all the people who like the Snyderverse, here is your superheroes who will kill and do this, and I'm going to put the heroes who are supposed to stand for more up against them.
Boy howdy, let me tell you, like it would never happen in a million years, but you know who would be the authority director would be Zack
Snyder.
And you are 100% right. I think that is the point of like, here's what the old guys used to look like. We ain't doing that shit anymore. And again, they are still heroes. So I think James Gunn will do the writing the line of, hey, they are still good guys, but maybe they should learn from Superman and stuff. Really exciting choice. Again, for your first phase of showing an entire well-rounded, different universe full of different characters.
And because they're heroes, because they're still heroes at the end of the day, it still opens up to the Justice League movie that I really want to see, which is Justice League versus the Crime Syndicate.
Yeah.
So, we'll get there.
That's an interesting context to possibly be in, where the Authority exists and then Superman shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like the Wildstorm was founded in Image, and then they joined the DCU with the New 52. So like they could do, but this new universe really do whatever they want. It is, again, it's so interesting having your Batman and Superman like not be the same age. Again, I like that. It is an interesting choice.
So that's the first lineup. That's the first few projects of Phase 1 or Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. And I think honestly, right away, it already lives up to that name of Gods and Monsters.
Yeah, like there are almost more gods and monsters than regular people. You got Dracula. You got a Dracula and a Wolfman.
It's just really cool to see this kind of breadth of characters, because we talked about it before. Like, Phase 4, we've got Moon Knight. We didn't get Moon Knight in Phase 1. We're getting the gods, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and the monsters, Swamp Thing, the Creature Commandos. Like, we're getting all these. Waller. No, I'm kidding.
She is a monster. Yeah. The Amazon, they're gods. Yeah.
Amazons are gods. Like, we're getting that like it was an aptly named chapter.
Obviously this is wild speculation, but people are like, okay, so they're setting up like a lot of the big players, whether it's like big Superman or Batman, or like the big like Swamp Thing stuff and Booster Gold from the future, and then everyone's like, okay, so like then the next phase is going to be like all the regular folk. Yo, give me my Green Arrow, my Black Canary, and give me my Wildcat, and give me like all those characters. Give me the Phantom Stranger and the Question, and all the street level heroes. Like, I'm curious if there will be tonally like that kind of like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and then it'll be a big Chapter 3. They're all together now, type of thing. It's super curious.
We have never been closer to a Question procedural TV series.
Yeah. Oh, and in this universe, James Gunn knows that's what everyone wants. So like, I firmly believe like all of the things we do want are now possible. This made me so excited, y'all. I read so many Marvel comics. And the thing that I love and hate about Marvel comics is that sometimes they try to tie into the MCU too much. Specifically, a couple years ago, the Guardians of the Galaxy and Iron Man were getting real screwed over because they just wanted to be the movies, right? And then a lot of that is gone. Like, we are getting now regular Tony Stark. The Guardians have been good for a couple runs now, right? I don't have to worry about that with DC. But what I'm also excited about is when Shang-Chi gets a movie, he does get a comic book when he didn't before. Mm-hmm. Like, Moon Knight now has more comics than he did before. Werewolf by Night has been featured more now than he has in the past 20 years. You know what I mean? So like, for these movies, that means we're also going to get more of these characters too. We will get a new Creature Commandos book. We will get all these things. And it's just because they get the publicity, and James Gunn will say, hey, buy this book, and then they'll sell it on Amazon, because every single one of these books is now sold out on Amazon. I couldn't buy Supergirl when I wanted to.
That's so. I want to specifically talk about that. But real quickly, Sparks and Ben, you've been a little silent on this. We've been monopolizing the conversation. You guys, thoughts on this first chapter, or first part of the first chapter?
I'll let Ben go first because he's been the most quiet.
So far, pretty good. I mean, I won't deny that I was very confused at first when it's like the Authority, Creature Commandos, Waller. I'm like, why? But then the more I look into it, it's like you said, gods and monsters. Here's the monsters. We got the gods. I'm glad we're seeing Jon Stewart. I don't know how I feel about a Green Lantern TV show at first, but the more I think about it, the more it works. And the more I think about it, the more I'm swaying to, a Green Lantern TV show would be really nice. Although I do hope that they actually get to go off Earth, because that's like one of the best things about Green Lantern is that they go off planet. They do a whole bunch of other cool stuff off the planet. Other than that, I mean, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah,
I have been burned. And all four of us, how many Comic-Cons have we been to? Is sitting at the Warner Brothers for Hall H, and the big DC reveal is we're gonna have this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do all these cool things, and nothing happens of it. Yeah. I'm not saying that James Gunn will not deliver, but I am going into this with very cautious optimism, and I'm not gonna say it's not gonna happen, because James Gunn with him at the helm, I'm pretty sure it will happen. Mm-hmm. And I have 100% faith in James Gunn. But I'm not going to be like super hyped up and super like, oh my God, they're going to do this. I'm glad we're going to get Batman Brave and the Bold. I'm glad that we have a decent plan. But until they deliver, I will go into reserve a lot of my thoughts on this plan, because how many times so many times in the past 10, almost 15 years now, have we been, as DC saying, we are going to do X, Y, and Z, and nothing happens of it.
Yeah, that's not true. Black Adam came out.
It's a yeah.
Look, I'll bounce off that point, Ben, just to say that like I don't think we need to be worried about the general idea of this going forward. I'm not going to say every single one of these projects absolutely is going to make it to fruition. They might not. One or two might not. But the overall thing, it'll happen, because if this doesn't work, they've got nothing. Like they won't be able to get an audience back in one more time. For a while. They'll have to just pump the brakes entirely on DC for a while. You just won't get people to turn out because nobody's going to want to invest. But the thing about that is that James Gunn's all about storytelling first, and he's been very clear about that. Importantly, no project goes into being made until the story is written, which is a huge departure from
until
what
the
they do.
Script is done.
From what they do over at Marvel Studios, where they're finishing the script up until the last moment. So that is very encouraging, because it means like good stories are going to produce good products, and we might not get every single thing he named here. We probably will, but even if we didn't, we're going to get most of it.
Also, I do believe that we will get everything announced for here, because like he didn't announce 15 things, right? Also, he didn't give release dates except for one, meaning we don't know when to expect any of these. So like he didn't give, this is coming out in 2025 May, this is coming out in March. So I don't know when any of these come out, and they could all take their time.
We do know Creature Commandos and Waller before Superman, but then otherwise who knows?
But what I mean is like none of those have release dates like firm. So,
but to Ryan's point and Sparks' point, though we know those we have more information about those three because they're the furthest along.
Yeah.
We know as much as they've developed at this point.
It might take like. They could be writing the Batman script, right? And like it might take a year longer than they expect. That's fine. Then they won't make that movie until the script's done. So like if we have to wait, and like if they say, hey, we got a Batman movie coming out in the next couple of years, and it takes 3 years instead of 2, they didn't do what Marvel does and give us 48 release dates for the next 2 to 3 years, where we know half of those change anyway. So like this was like the best approach, where I do think all of these first chapter 1 things, they will all come out in the next 5 to 10 years for sure.
With James Gunn stuff, because I was like even looking ahead in our thing about all some of James Gunn's quotes about like story first, director's vision, and all that gives me hope. But we've been burned before.
I mean, but Ben is talking about real quickly, Ben, because I'm just gonna reiterate something. What Ben is talking about is exactly what Sparks was talking about, which is that Sparks said, this is really it. They don't have another chance after this. Not really. Like you're going to have a very difficult time getting your audience back. There are people like Ben who are already at that point where you're like, I'm not sure if I'm here for this. Where I think with us, we're giving DC this other chance. We were confident on James Gunn. But there are people still like Ben who's like, you know what, you burned me already.
That's fair. And again, we're not going to see these projects for a while.
And also, I'm not saying that I'm like completely burned out on DC. I was with James Gunn with his leadership with the Suicide Squad. I wasn't really too hot on a Suicide Squad film until I heard James Gunn directing. I saw the movie. I freaking love that movie. Peacemaker, the same thing. I heard they're making a Peacemaker show. I'm like, why are we gonna make a Peacemaker about this no-name guy from the Suicide Squad movie? Turns out to be one of the greatest superhero shows I have ever seen in my entire goddamn life.
True.
With James Gunn is not the problem. The problem is DC's Zaslav, the other heads over there. But if they can keep their greedy little mitts off of it and let the creators do what the creators do best, and then stuff comes out, and I have a really good feeling it's going to be good because I mean, it's James Gunn. Thus far, James Gunn has put out some really great shit, some really good.
To help you along, Ben, real quickly, I want to reiterate something that he said that we've already talked about. You know, like, when they were hired, when Safran and Gunn were hired, it was with the mentality of, you know, putting creators in a place like this is the way to go, because putting executives in a place like this hasn't been working. So we'll try this Pixar method. We'll do this idea of like, and so that's why Gunn is very much filmmaker first, you know. And to be fair, that's also what I liked about Hamada. Like, I don't want to throw him under the bus completely, but like, I like that Hamada let the director's vision shines through. Like, that's a James Wan Aquaman movie. That's a Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman movie. Like, it's not. It didn't feel homogenized even under him. And so to see Gunn not only committing to that, but also doubling down on that. Like, these films will be, if James Mangold is doing a Swamp Thing film, it is a James Mangold Swamp Thing film. And so like I think that's what's going to help this franchise, that there won't be a lot of meddling from David Zaslav, because maybe he knows he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but like he put them in charge for the reason that they will be in charge, not to be overseen by him.
Right, but really the gist of what I'm saying is I'm looking forward to it, but I don't want to say too much until I see a trailer.
Yeah. No, we all get it, Ben. We know what you're talking about. I think I'm more encouraged by the diversity, and I don't mean like representationally. I mean just like how different this is from like any slate anyone probably would have predicted or come up with. It shows an investment in the comics, and it also shows an investment in the fact that they clearly have ideas and they have stories that they want to tell. That's where their focus is. It's not on crowd pleasers. We're not starting at get all the things that are obvious out of the way first, and then we'll get weird and wacky. As Ryan said, starting with Creature Commandos is a clear signal of like, we're just gonna do the thing that makes the most sense and we can do right now and we have a good story for, and it'll all work out.
James Gunn, there is no one better than James Gunn to write a bunch of weirdos on a team. Like, I have more faith in Creature Commandos than right now anything else, because I know James Gunn is writing it, and that's going to be good because he's a good writer. He's written nothing but good stuff.
I will skip a little bit ahead and then go back, because Mag has a comment that actually ties into a quote that I have, if that's okay. If Ben, if you want to put up Mag's comment. I says, I'm interested in how Supergirl will be in the Tomorrow films, or the Tomorrowverse films, after the event with Legion of Superheroes anime movie. Yes. So Gunn has a quote about that, which I thought was interesting. He was specifically asked about the DC original animated films that come out from Warner Media. The films are building a new universe right now, starting with Superman Man of Tomorrow. What does that mean? Because he mentioned that he wants film, television, animation, video games all to be connected. What does that mean exactly? The details of which we'll have to wait and see. But he has a quote here about the original films, if I may. We're dealing with all that, he starts. Some of that stuff will continue as Elseworlds, but a lot of other stuff we're starting to bring into animation with Warner Brothers Animation's president, Sam Register, so that we'll have things that are connected with this. I think there have been a lot of really marvelous DC cartoons, so we're going to keep moving forward with that. Sounds like the volume will decrease, but the universe will continue.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. Like, I don't think the Elseworlds banner is there just for the things that already started, like the Batman and the Todd Phillips Joker film series and the DC animated films. I think it's still there for like any other project. If someone comes forward and says, I have a really good story idea, it doesn't fit into the minutia of the world you are building, but it's a great story idea, it'll be an Elseworlds project, whether that's in animation or a video game or a movie. I think that the point is that he just wants to be utilizing those fields to build their universe rather than keeping themselves locked to just movies and live action television series.
So when they first said that we want, this new DCU, one actor will do everything. They'll do games, movies, TV shows. And that's very, very interesting, because I am not against that as long as you are not destroying everything else that's coming out. If we're going to continue to have like the DC animated movies, a new Legion movie, let's do a new Batman movie in this universe, whatever. That should continue. Because I do not want the next guy who's playing Batman to now be the only person playing Batman in the animated thing. He's also only guy in the video game. He's also the only one in the TV show, because that limits thousands of actors from doing every other role they could potentially be doing. So as long as you're not limiting all of your animation and games to just the new DC universe, this is fine. This is totally fine. Because that's when it gets scary. When, let's just say, like, Pedro Pascal is your new Batman. He's going to be the only person playing Batman in the movies and the games and the TV shows for the next 5 years. I'd have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that will be the case.
No, and I think that what's valuable is that I suspect this is going to, I think Brandon's right, the volume of the amount of DC animated films and how rapid they come out is probably going to decrease. An investment into their animation studio and their projects, regardless of if they are for the main universe or for these Elseworld stories, is going to mean that they are getting better budgets, better teams, better support.
Yeah.
I think that is going to happen. I think putting an investment in a banner way overseeing the DC properties as something that you should support is going to funnel more people towards it. And putting it specifically on an Elseworlds banner will make it so that people don't feel like it's something that they have to watch, but it might be something they trust to watch now just because it's getting this oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the DC original animated films are frankly always on the chopping block when something like this runs around, or at least they have been for the past 5 years, maybe more, because they don't make a lot of money. They're expensive to put out because you're putting them out only physical media, and they don't get the return that, frankly, I wish they got, but they just don't. Because of maybe streaming hurt that. Maybe they should be streaming only movies. But at the end of the day, it's interesting. It does sound like there hasn't been a decision whether or not the franchise that they're building in these films will continue. Those films will continue, because he does say we're looking into that. There's like a decision one way or the other hasn't been made, but it does sound promising that he's willing to be like, we'll most likely keep those as is.
This is starting to sound like the dream that I know Marvel will never do, just because they're doing something different, which is fine. They're building their own singular universe. I just want a world where I can go see a Batman movie and it is tied to a Justice League cinematic universe. I can also next year see a different Batman movie that it's just its own thing, just like I do in the comic books. Or I can watch a Batman TV show that's not tied to anything. And I know it's an unrealistic Hollywood view of the world, because that's just, we will never get that. But the Elseworlds thing is the closest I'm going to get to that, where I can have multiple versions. We are going to get a Batfleck while Robert Pattinson is around. So like my dream is slowly coming to a reality where it's just like the comics, where I have a plethora of all my favorite heroes. Because why can't we just have a bunch of everything? That's how you make money.
So Elseworlds, they mentioned Elseworlds being an imprint that everything is going to be specifically labeled Elseworlds. That's one thing that's really important to him, because he name checked like the Arrowverse and things like that as not being clear, or not being, I wasn't quite clear on it, but like he was like, everything that's not part of this universe needs to be specifically labeled Elseworlds from now on. And so the Batman Part 2 will be Elseworlds. That has a release date, by the way. It's October 3rd, 2025. The director, Matt Reeves, talked about how it's an epic crime saga. Very exciting. Obviously Joker Folie à Dos, and then Ta-Nehisi Coates' Superman film still apparently in production.
Yeah,
that's great. It's a good sign.
And on that note, like that these Elseworlds things can continue. I do not completely care if Journey Smollett and Misha Green's Black Canary film is set in this new Gunn Safran created DC universe. I just want it to be made.
Yes.
I don't care where it lands. I just want it to be made. If it's an Elseworlds, it's an Elseworlds. I do not care. Just make the movie.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about if Margot Robbie's not our Harley Quinn in this new universe, then give her one last project that's an Elseworlds to send her off.
100%.
That's how I feel. Like, I do a good last project with her if you're not going to use her anymore. Please, for the love of God, do that. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Ryan talked a little bit about how Tom King is one of the kind of the architects of this new chapter, of this new phase of DC. Other names: Drew Goddard, Jeremy Slater, who worked on Moon Knight, Christina Hodson, who wrote the Flash film, and Crystal Henry, Watchmen, are among other writers that are the architects of this universe.
Those are it's a good list of people.
Yeah. Safran also said that Batgirl would have irrevocably hurt DC's brand if they put it out there, and all right.
I kind of wish he didn't say that, to be honest.
Me too.
Even like I
think he's full of shit.
There is a chance it's a bad movie, right? But it happens. But like, I wish they wouldn't just constantly continue to shit on this movie that's not coming out.
Yeah.
Just let it die. Let it be like, hey, it's not right for us. Sorry, Batgirl. But like to say,
let the people who worked on it
brand.
Let the people who worked on it move on. You don't have to be so mean to say like it would have ruined our brand.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, that's really shitty. Obviously, I just like you brought up with Gunn kind of throwing Birds of Prey under the bus. I kind of wish they hadn't said these things. It goes back to what I said about like specifically naming HBO projects as reference points. I'm like, I feel like there were talking points to this. It's not to say that everything they said wasn't what they felt, but that they had to hit certain buttons to protect Zaslav's ass.
Again, True Detective is a weird.
That's part of it
for agreement.
And like I'm sure that's close, but like close in a broad sense of like they're investigating a thing.
Yeah.
And like
any other detective show.
Right. But you said True Detective.
Because that's ours.
Game of Thrones. It's about interpersonal politics. And like
we own that one.
That's it. And like who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but it does feel like there were a lot of weird talking points that I feel like were driven by improve the look of Zaslav as the head of this brand, specifically for the decisions that they've made, including the hiring of you. And that one particular feels like you were told to say this if Batgirl came up, I feel like, and unfortunately have to, because that's how jobs work.
Yeah.
But even if that was their opinion, I'm like, I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
Let us decide if it's bad. How about that?
I mean, it's the movie. The movie can never come out because of the tax break thing.
Yeah.
Let it die.
Would Peter Safran have even seen it? Who knows?
Yeah. So he mentioned. So one of the things at the beginning of the presentation is that he said that I mentioned already. Movies, TV shows, animation, and video games all want to be connected now. They don't want all of them to be separate entities. To kind of get more clarity on that one, because I wasn't quite sure what he meant from just the presentation. He didn't really go into it, in fairness. But I, on first hearing that, I actually don't like the idea of incorporating the video games into this overarching franchise. It's not like I needed Marvel's Spider-Man to be Tom Holland.
Let me tell you, lots of video game developers agree with you.
Yeah, and so
the way
that's
video games are made is not how movies are made. They take a lot longer and they're a lot more difficult. And scheduling really big celebrities, that's why there's not a lot of really big celebrities unless you pay them a lot of money in video games. That's why there's voice actors who need to be paid more. But like again, like if they will make the next Batman, Pedro Pascal's Batman, and we're gonna make a Batman movie with him in it, or a Batman video game with him in it. Don't make other Batman games. You know what I mean? Let there be multiple Batman games if you're gonna do this. But I don't think this is gonna happen. I don't think they're gonna truncate an entire section of an audience.
Well, and again, like I go back to, I don't think that this is shutting out other projects. Like I think there will be other DC games that will now be called Elseworlds, but that there will be other DC game projects. I think that he just wants to utilize video games to sometimes tell a story that exists in this field.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to bring up the quote, because I went searching for an interview that he did on DC, and he does have a quote specifically explaining what this means. So he says, "It's not like we're going to have the Superman movie come out and have this Superman game come out. It's more like we'll have the Superman film come out, then maybe 2 years later, we have the Supergirl movie coming out. So what's the story in between there? Is there a crypto game that we can play that comes in between them? Something that's still set in the world with these characters, but is its own thing. We want to give the prominence to games that they deserve."
Okay, so if like a comic book tie-in, but just turning it into a video game.
Yeah.
And then like if you have a smaller villain in video game form, there's no reason they can't show up in live action still.
I got it for you. It's so Creature Commandos is all modern day show.
Yeah.
You want your World War II shit?
Wolfenstein, but
it's
with
a video game.
Yeah,
it's a video game they make after the show.
Yeah, that sounds all right. Yeah.
So that's what I think.
This makes more sense to me, and I'm glad that they were able to find the clarity to that. At the same time, it's still I think what Marvel has done with their video games is really great. I think that they're all separate universes. They're not connected to anything larger. And I don't want to see that go away from DC, because DC has made some incredible video games. Some not so much, but like still. So like if we're getting both, I'm fine with that.
There's a Wonder Woman game not coming out this year. It's probably coming out next year. But there's a Wonder Woman game that's in development.
Right.
That it's probably will be now quote unquote Elseworlds because it's not,
which is fine.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the thing is that again, I think he wants to utilize these tools where possible. He wants to utilize animation when it's possible and video games when it's possible. And to be honest, probably comics when it's possible. I know he didn't bring it up here, but I would not be surprised if he decides, we really should have this really nice story that fills in this spot right here that would tell a lot of story, but it doesn't need to be an animated show. Let's make it a comic.
Marvel used to do that. Then are like, we can't do it anymore.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's the thing we've talked about before where like, boy, how nice would it have been if we'd had a comic that was set between Civil War and Infinity War on what Steve and the team were doing rather than 2 pages in a movie companion book that just are kind of them standing in a room.
Yeah.
Like you could tell that story to really flesh those characters out and fill in some gaps. And I think that there's entirely a possibility. I think he just wants to use access to all the things that they have access to as resources to expand the universe when the story is right for it.
I will be so excited because I bet it'll be a while before the first like video game
Oh,
tie-in.
absolutely.
But I'm curious. I'm so excited to be like, I wonder what the first one will be. Watch it just be like it's like a telltale crypto game where you're just playing as crypto, just like doing detective work.
So because we brought up comics, it's a good time to point out that yes, Gunn used comic books to promote these movies, and even put out a tweet afterwards saying these are the comics to get what the tone that we're going for, and they all sold out online. Many stores are sold out of them. They're sold out at a distributor level. Like it is really crazy to see this happen. And I really, really, I will say this first. I think this is Gunn's way of being like, he mentioned before is like, I don't want comic books to die on the vine. I don't want them to be disrespected as a medium. I love them and I want to promote them. I want them to succeed. I don't want to live in a world where comic books don't exist anymore. And I'm paraphrasing some of that, but still. And so him using, sorry about the car behind me, him using comic books to promote these projects and then saying this is what we're going for, I believe will be the norm going forward for DC Studios, and hopefully it kicks Marvel in the ass to do the same thing. Because I don't think you guys noticed, or maybe you did, but we didn't bring it up when we talked about the Shazam trailer. At the end of the Shazam trailer is an ad for comic books. Go read these comic books for this thing. That's really cool. I want to see that at the end of every comic book trailer and every DC comic book trailer. I
cannot believe that, first of all, there's people saying that Marvel does this all the time, and no, they don't, not to this degree. And people saying Captain America Civil War is a promotion for Marvel's Civil War, this in the same way that this is like, guys, using the same name is not the same way of promoting a book. Just because it's called Civil War doesn't mean they're selling more copies. You have to put it on the screen. You have to tell people, hey, this movie you'll see in a year, this is what it's based off. Go check it out. And it's working. Those books are selling hot. You want to buy Batman's Omnibus? You can't unless you spend $200.
I think we're also going to see James Gunn take the same idea because he's aware of how this influences people and push on the studios to be like, hey, maybe you should pay the people who made the comic we're basing this off of.
DC,
maybe we should give a little bit of money to them.
Yeah, I don't know about DC in general, but I know James Gunn specifically. When he worked at DC, like he got John Ostrander and a couple other guys a lot of money for Suicide Squad stuff
because they put him in the movie. And speaking line specifically,
yeah.
John Ostrander has a speaking line specifically to give him the kind of money that he would get as an actor, because the residual is measly, honestly.
Right. And so I think in whatever way he can, he's going to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's really great. And so there was a prevalent theory going around for many years that was not disproven, and for many years suggesting that comic book movies don't create comic book readers. And we now have definitive proof, I believe, that is wrong, because if you promote the comics, you create comic book readers. And for many, 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 many decades, the movies were not. Mm-hmm. This is like from the beginning of comic book adaptations, they did not promote comic books. And that is why that theory was created. And so having the idea of like, hey, we're going to create a bunch of comic book readers by saying, this is what these movies are based on. These are the titles to go find. They will do it.
The only comic books that get sold after a movie is announced is the people who buy those comics are people who are already at the comic book shop.
Mhm.
They say there's a new Ant-Man movie, like, oh, I'll check out that Ant-Man comic because they're already at the comic shop. Casey Casual is not gonna. I'm gonna go pick up an Ant-Man comic because it's based off that. Like, it's so interesting that like the buzz around DC, is so hot right now, and like the sales are real. Like, if you go on Amazon, you can't buy any of these books that any of these books ever announced. None of them. It's incredible. DC or DC Infinite, if you go on their main page, there's an entire row of here's all the movies we just talked about. You can read them. You got to spend $120 a year to do it. But it's actually not that bad. But at one price, it's a lot. They're doing such a good job of like getting people to read the comic. And I agree, man. Like, this will be the regular. The next chapter 2, we'll see the exact same thing, and those comics will sell out too. And that's only a win for the comic industry.
The thing about what Marvel did that, we gave them props because, it's kind of cool. You threw us a bone. Now realizing it's not enough is they put QR codes in their shows, which would link to comic book pages. That's cool, whatever. But that wasn't explicit enough. That was a blink. There's blink and you miss a QR codes. Who in their right mind would be like, if I saw a QR code in a TV show, my first instinct is not to scan it.
Yeah, I'm not going to pause the show to read that comic.
And like that, and that's kind of cool, sure, whatever. But and it's nice to acknowledge the comic book creators, but like doing this explicit thing of like what Shazam did, what the Shazam trailer did, which was have the end of the trailer be an ad for comic books, just a quick title page of like, these are the comics that the book is based on. That is enough.
Yeah,
that's frankly the minimum.
Frank quietly, the minimum.
So. I was really happy to see that, and I'm really happy that could be the norm.
And honestly, I didn't expect it because again, like I read 3 issues of Supergirl, but I was like, I'll pick up that trade. It's definitely available on Amazon because everything's available on Amazon. And it's like, we are out of stock. And then I went to discounttrades.com. We are out of stock. And I went to my Barnes & Noble across the street from my work, and they didn't have it either. Everybody's buying it.
It's really great to see.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's really nice to see that the adage comic book movies don't create comic book readers is not true. You promote the comics, they will come.
Especially in the modern era of like how you can literally press one buy it now button and you can have a book delivered to your house. Like, you show somebody something, you're like, they will buy it. It's very easy.
The Moon Knight QR codes, like Mag brought up, I mean, like, cool. It is fun that they did that. That's neat.
Yeah.
It's not the same as putting in front of their face, you should go read this comic.
Especially if you're not like a fake nerd, if you're Casey Casual, you're not even going to know what that means. You're going to be watching Moon Knight as a regular show. You might not even see the QR code or pay attention to it. Because how are you supposed to know as a regular person, I have to scan that to read a comic? Because like I don't know if Disney Plus tells you that when you open the episode, right? Like, no. How are you supposed to know that unless you're in the nerd zone?
There's talking. James Gunn is saying all the right things for me. He's saying story comes first. The director's vision is the director's vision. We do not have release dates for a bunch of these because the story needs to be there before it's created. He did not name check Marvel, but like he did talk about how like many superhero movies are filmed without third act written, and we're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, like this is also good. These movies can all turn out to be, just like any other movie. It could be totally fine, mediocre, whatever. But like he is saying all the right things for like it's got to be so daunting. And remember, he was just hired like 4 months ago. And he's like, all right, cool. Plan 10 years of movies and television and video games for us, please.
And keep some of what came before.
And keep it is a daunting task, but like. Again, he having a partner instead of just doing all on his own with Peter Safran, like is really great.
And he also sees it as this incredible opportunity, and he's so passionate and excited about it. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and again, working with Marvel for so long, at this point, a decade, because with the 3 Guardians movies, he's learned from their mistakes, and he's also the person who made if Guardians 3 come out like a perfect trilogy. In the system.
And he understands that they're in the perfect position right now, that they don't have to do what the MCU did because they don't have to hope that this next release after Iron Man works and that we get to build a universe. He gets to open the door and say, we know that there's an audience for these materials. We just have to convince them that there are stories here they want to see.
Yeah.
So we're going to just throw that out there. And he knows that that's where they are. So he knows that they can go hard and go wide on what they're going to give them.
Yeah.
And when you look at something like the legacy of what DC has done in film for many, many years, the idea of like we're going to introduce a new Batman, but we're going to do it in a Batman family movie. You know, how many times have comic book fans wanted a Batman family? The thing is, James Gunn is a comic book fan. He's one of us, frankly. Like he's a person who loves comic books and reads comic books, and probably is also much like us. Hey, why haven't you adapted the Batman family yet? What's taking you so long? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm in charge now. I can do that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because we know everyone and their mother knows Batman.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of Batman movies without Robin. It's time.
I agree. I'm ready for it. It is so crazy to think that in a couple years time, we will have a 35 to 40-year-old Batman with his son in the first movie instead of waiting 10 years for a trilogy. That's just really cool. And again, every time you make a new Batman movie or a new whatever version of something, you have to do something they haven't done before. And what have you done before? Just do what the comic does.
Yeah.
Just do that. Have it be where and again, with the Grant Morrison stuff, they introduced the Zurin Law stuff where he has a personality built into his brain in case he ever gets his mind controlled. He says Zurin Law, and then that mind takes over. And he's
Grant Morrison.
Nonsense.
Grant Morrison is so wonderful, and I'm so happy that their books are sold out because so many people are reading Grant Morrison's wonderful Batman books. Zurin Arg is so cool because it's a stupid concept of an interplanetary Batman who has Superman's powers in space from the 60s that Grant Morrison was like, you know what if it's actually a misinterpreted words? What if it's actually Martha Wayne's misinterpreted words and it triggers a psychotic Batman when he's brainwashed? Beautiful. Mwah. Beautiful.
Morrison is one of the great writers who he's everything's canon. Everything is canon. The stupidest stuff and the most important stuff, all of it is real. So they can take whatever they want. And that is just, again, starting from this is the last thing I'll say about it because I know we've been going a long time, but starting at a base of pure comic books of we're starting with 4 Robins from the start is thrilling. Just thrilling.
All right. Let's move on before Ben passes out.
He already did.
And real quick, what's of all these? What is the number one that you're excited about of all these?
Superman.
Okay, what's the number 2? Because Superman, I kind of knew.
Yeah,
Swamp Thing.
Cool. Okay, what's the number 3?
Love it. It's a good answer.
Brave and the Bold.
It's good.
I'll be honest right now. I think my top is Waller. I have to be honest because we know the creative team, and because I love Peacemaker and the fact that I know we're getting kind of Peacemaker 2.5 but focused on Waller. I'm okay, cool.
She's got to deal with that team that hit her in the head and stuff, right?
Super stoked for it.
You know, it's interesting. This is the Book of Boba Fett, but they actually told us beforehand, no, this is the Book of Boba Fett, not Mandalorian. It's Peacemaker 1.5, not something new.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it because it's focusing on Waller and it makes sense to have the Peacemaker team show up again.
And Adebayo, her daughter's
oh God, yeah.
I'm ready.
God, yeah.
Love
and
it.
you got the Doom Patrol and Watchmen people on it. My God.
I think this is very exciting. And if you're a comic book fan, frankly, I don't know why you wouldn't be.
Yeah,
sure.
All right.
If anything, this just gives you an excuse to check out comics you've never read before. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a bright future. I'm excited.
It's a dawn
of DC.
Mm-hmm.